Here at We Are Made, we like to walk away with feeling more than just inspired, but actually prepared to take the next step. So, up next, Kai will be teaching us a masterclass on what we can take and how we can take our business from only a community and build it up. And I hope you guys can walk away with understanding her journey and building into grown media and how that looks. So, let's welcome Kaya to the stage. And Kaya, the floor is yours.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here and walk through my very roller coaster journey in building, grown, and also just becoming the multi-hyphenate that I am today. Am I good to share my screen? Okay. I just sent a request to share the screen.
You're good to go.
Beautiful. Okay. Give me 1 second. Okay, it's giving me a little trouble sharing my screen. It's telling me I'm gonna have to quit and reopen if that's okay, but it won't let me share.
Okay. Would you like to try to press share again? You do have the permission now.
Okay, let me see.
There we go.
Yay! Okay, beautiful. Okay, amazing. So I will basically just be walking you all through what it took to build Grown from very, very, very humble beginnings to where we are now and our goals for the future. So as Imani mentioned, my name is Kaya. I am the founder of Grown Magazine and Grown Media. And this is a space that I built because I essentially didn't really see any platforms that were talking to me. I was probably like 2019 at the time. And I felt like I didn't have a magazine or a media outlet that I was looking to for advice. I grew up where my mother collected Essence magazines and my grandmother had a big Jet magazine collection. And I saw my sister start to get like her J14 and her 17 magazines. And so I just realized pretty early on that I didn't have my own space. And so I started writing really as a personal blog in the beginning, just to give myself that outlet. And over time, it has become a magazine and a media space that has been built by and for Black women. So where it all started. So as I mentioned before, I started a blog, and at the time it was called She Unplugged, and I thought it was the coolest name in the world at the time. I was like, it's so edgy. But I essentially made this blog again just because I wanted to write, and I went on WordPress and I just started it by myself, taught myself everything I needed to know really to like have a blog on WordPress. And I posted our first ever piece in 2014, and this was during the Christmas break of my sophomore year in college. And then as I continued to kind of like matriculate during my time at Spelman, I continued writing on it and then having some of my classmates and friends write on it with me. You'll see in the bottom this kind of like newspaper cutout. I was actually interviewed as a senior in college about She Unplugged, and there's a direct quote in there that says that I want to be like a baby Essence magazine, which, you know, is so interesting to me now because I feel like, you know, we have kind of like grown into this platform that is reminiscent of what I would hope Essence was for my mother when she was younger. So, you know, early days of manifesting, that was baby Kaya that just had such a strong vision. And then by the time I graduated college in 2016, and I think this specific picture is very interesting because I was really stressed out that day. And I graduated with like no honors. There are no cords on my neck. I literally was like, I don't know what I'm about to do with my life. But I just was following my passions. And having graduated as a music major, and I was about to enter a graduate program for my master's in music, I still brought Grown, at the time She Unplugged, I still brought this platform along with me, and told women from not only in the country, but internationally were writing on it. And then around 2019, I was like done with school. I was kind of fully in the midst of starting my career and being a real adult and navigating that space. And I felt like She Unplugged just didn't make sense anymore. I didn't like the name, I didn't like the branding, but I liked the mission. I liked what we were doing. I liked how, you know, I could tell it was making an impact on other Black women like me, and our audience was starting to grow. But I knew that something had to change. And this is where I made one of the biggest and most important decisions in completely rebranding what it was. So in 2019, I took a leap and I put on Craigslist. I don't even know if people use Craigslist anymore. I held interviews for a team and I was like, I'm building a thing. It's called She Unplugged, but we're going to change the name. And I'm looking for women who want to work with me. And at the time it was in New York. I did interviews in a Starbucks, and I found some people who were just down with the vision. And this is when we became Grown, and we held our first event in 2019. We were literally in one of our team members' apartments. Like, this photo was taken in her apartment, and this is where we had the event. And, you know, it felt so special because this was the first time I did anything in person for this brand. And you can see the logo was a lot different. So we were still going through evolutions. But I think this moment really showed me that sometimes you don't have to throw your idea away. Like, when it feels like it's not working, when it feels like something isn't gelling, we're not growing, I don't feel like this really represents what I want to do anymore. I think it's so easy to just quit and walk away from something. But I told myself I'm going to make the effort to change it and put a team together. And if it doesn't work, cool, then we can walk away. But something told me to take that leap, to basically admit that maybe my initial idea wasn't the best idea. And with this change, it really just exploded who we were as a brand. And it became so much more accessible to people, so much more inclusive, and it just looked a lot better. And yeah, it was just a testament that I made the right decision, to fix what was broken versus just completely walking away from the brand in entirety. And then we approached another pivot. So when I first changed the name to Grown, we weren't a magazine yet. I was still holding on to us being this like digital blog. I didn't want to put magazine on us because, quite honestly, I wasn't interested in doing it that way. But it's something that happens, I guess, like when you build a community and they start talking to you, and people that are on your team start having ideas, and they kind of like communicated to me that we could elevate in this way. And so I was also at another crossroads where I was like, I think the name is there, but I don't think our logo is right. Because as you can see on the previous side, it was like grow with a slash and an N. And again, I thought it was super cool. I thought it made sense. But anytime someone had to write it down or say it, they didn't know what it was. And so I reached out to a friend of mine. She was another Black woman, and she was a designer at the time. And I was like, can you make us a logo? This was the first time that anyone who wasn't me was going to design something for Grown. And that felt really weird because I'm like, this is my baby. No one's ever touched this other than me. But I trusted her to rebrand us. And she's the one that created the Grown logo that we use still to this day. And it really gave us this editorial edge that I was like, oh, we have to put this on the cover of a magazine. Like, it looks so good. So that era kind of really showed me the power of like asking for help and building partnerships that can really help you get to the next point, because we wouldn't have gotten here if I hadn't said, I want to make a change, but I don't think at this point I know how to do it. And so into 2021 is when we started doing these digital covers. And it really was like a love letter to Black women who were building communities, coming up, but maybe they're not getting a phone call from Essence Magazine. Maybe they're not getting a phone call from Vogue, you know, like maybe they're not getting their flowers in a way that, you know, these mega media companies would typically give them. And it was really special to be able to let them know that where you are right now, like you still deserve to see your face on something, and you still deserve to see your name on something. So our transition into a digital magazine kind of like was the final thing that really set the tone for who we were going to be as a brand moving forward. And then another point came. I think in any business that you have, especially a creative one, I think every few years you hit this crossroads of like, okay, cool, we did that part, but then what's next? And something that was always very important to me was that I didn't want to be just an Instagram page. I didn't want to be just a page where like we were going viral and like that was cool, but like people couldn't really show up and like meet each other and get resources directly. And so Playdate, which was a creative idea I had last year, was kind of like our first real attempt at like an in-person event, and bringing people together. And it was something that I like, you know, did marketing for. I posted a TikTok and it went viral. And so like we quickly sold out. It was really intimate. I'd only had like 30 spaces because again, I had no experience in like hosting an event where like hundreds of people were there. And I just didn't want to put that stress on myself. So I was like, oh, we get 30 people. Like, you know, it'll probably take me a week or two to you know, get 30 RSVPs. Child, we had 30 RSVPs in 2 days. And it, you know, it was such a great testament that also that this was the right next move, that this is what the community wanted. And to be able to come together in a creative space, where there was networking, we were doing coloring and creative activities. It was very, very low lift when you think about like what events look like for adults. Like it was very, very simple, but people were very excited about it. And it was amazing. And it really showed me that even when you don't have all of the money in the world, you don't have any sponsors. We didn't have any sponsors. I literally, you know, the space that we used was so kind to essentially work out a deal was like with us where we didn't have to pay for the venue, but of course there was a certain number at the bar that they expected. And you'll be surprised how many venue spaces actually have the same deal where you're not actually expected to pay for the venue space. You're just expected to reach a certain number at the bar, which for me was great because I was like, I don't even have any money to give you anyway for the venue. And the people came and they spent at the bar. And so all of that was covered. And I think after Playdate is when I realized that like, okay, we can do this. I don't have to hold back on my vision just because I think we don't have everything we need. You can make things happen, and it really helps to start small. You don't have to launch a conference on your first try, you know, like you can launch a little meetup at a wine bar, which is essentially what we did. But it made such an impact to the people that came. And then fast forward from that event where we sold out with just 30 people, we quickly moved into a slate of other events. We followed up with our 5th anniversary party last year. And then we did an art gallery exhibition at the top of this year. And then of course we had our first summit level event, which was Founder Summit. And that brought together, you know, over 200 women of color in one space. So every time we've done an event, it's been such an evolution in the people coming together. There's people that have been at our very first event that still come to every event because they remember how they felt when it was just 30 of us in a room. And I think that is important. I think this might have been said on the last panel, you know, Andre 3000's quote of like great things happen in little rooms. And I think we take for granted how you can actually make people feel with limited resources and just an intimate moment so that they want to show up when the event is a conference level or a summit level. And I'm just so grateful that is the impact we've been able to have on people, and how we're like growing strategically from these events and really making sure that we're giving our community not only what they need, but like events that are our gap in the current events, you know, that are typical across, you know, New York and Atlanta. They're all usually the same kinds of events. So we kind of like have an edge on what we offer our audience. And recently this year, I made another big pivot in terms of realizing that it was time to fully devote myself to Grown. I walked away from my job as a senior social media manager, and I've been working as a social strategist for a little over the past 10 years or so, probably around the same time that I started Grown, is where I started kind of like learning and teaching myself social media strategy, which eventually led me into working in the corporate space. And, you know, I was burnt out. I'm not gonna lie. I was burnt out with this job specifically. And things were coming together with Grown that made me feel like it was time to just step out and put all of my effort into Grown, really build us out into a media company, and you know, just take the leap. So that is a very new chapter that I'm in, but it's been exciting to see how everyone's responding to it and how things are kind of lining up since making that big decision. And 11 years later, what have I learned? So many things. But I think in terms of community building, it's really important to remember to know what you expect of your community and what you want them to expect from you. And make sure that that is like a mutual relationship you're having with them. Stay in communication with them and don't just think you have to like make up ideas on your own. Like talk to them, see what they want, and then create it. I would say remember that the power is in the people. It's not about you. It's very easy to get a little big headed when you're like the person in the room that brought all of these people together. But I think humility goes very, very far when you're building a space for other people. And then this was talked about on the previous panel, but like creating personal boundaries with the world is very, very, very important. The more that you grow, the more that you bring people together, the more people will be asking you for things. So you have to learn how to stay open, but also remember that you're just one person. You can't say yes to everybody. And where you can't say yes to everybody, maybe you can create an offering through your business that kind of helps serve more people. And then lastly, just always make sure you're clear on your mission statement as a company, because the brand partnerships will come. And as we've seen in the past, brands have their own ideas of what they want and what they want or how they want their brand to be showcased through your company that may not actually adhere to what you want your company to stand for. So don't, you know, get blinded by the big sponsors that may reach out, because they will. And, you know, just remember what you want to create, and never lose sight of that. And yeah, that was a lot, but thank you for listening.
Great job, Kaya. This was amazing.
Thank you. This is so beautiful. Thank you for putting all of this together.
Of course, of course. So I just want to say thank you so much to Kaya for being our first masterclass teacher, Professor Nova. I want you guys to know how intentional she was about creating this masterclass for you all and sharing her story, things that I didn't know about her, and hopefully things you didn't know about her. So you can actually see like what it takes to not only have a community, but also sustain a community. So we really appreciate you sharing your story with us, and please tell people how they can find you.
Of course, I am on all social media as the Kaya Nova. I'm on LinkedIn as Kaya Nova, so my name is pretty unique. So you can kind of just type it in and you'll find me. But yeah, all of my pages are public, so feel free to DM or reach out.
Awesome. All right, we're going to say bye to Kaya, and we will see you on the flip side.
Thank you so much, everybody.